Is Jund playable in Legacy in 2023? Reid Duke says yes, and who am I to argue with the Duke? Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. First thing I want to do is explain a little change I'm making about the whole stream setup. So I have two computers in front of me. You can't exactly see them, but normally I record on the monitor that's over here. But I realized the other day that my microphone is facing in this direction, so I really should be recording on the monitor that is this way so that I get better sound quality. So if you notice me like kind of looking around or things a little bit awkward, bear with me as I'm trying to rewire my brain to work on the other monitor. I've been doing it this way for like 7 years, so it's going to be an awkward transition. So Michael B wanted me to go and play with some Minsc Boo. I mean, specifically, he asked me to jam Minsc Boo down people's throats, but like, we'll definitely do that. And I got to decide what sort of Minsc Boo deck I wanted to play. So I did a little searching, and I decided that Jund would be a fun thing. Jund in assorted formats is generally characterized by the same general play pattern. You start the early game with some sort of mana acceleration or Thoughtseize effect, and then you start playing mid-range cards that give you card advantage, with Dark Confidant, aka Bob, being one of the most prominent versions of that card advantage at the CMC2 slot. I think a lot of the legacy Jund decks end up getting defined by the things that are a little bit higher up on the curve, though. And as we've seen in just absolutely a ton of recent videos, playing a Mana Dork on turn 1 into a Grist on turn 2 is actually really strong. And Grist, despite the fact that it's maybe not the best planeswalker in the world, can surprisingly go and carry a game. And I'm sorry for saying this once again, but there is a card that I would really like to play in this deck that hasn't made its way to Magic Online, and that is Moloch, again from the Warhammer 40k cards. This is a green sunnable source of card advantage. It's an easy piece of removal, a great late game mana sink. Unfortunately, we're not going to have the option to play with that today. So, in doing my research for building a Jund deck, I found two interesting lists. I found Reid Duke's list from a recent Channel Fireball video, and I found Andre's list from an event in Brazil. And today I want to teach you a little bit about deck building before I kind of go and show you the list that I'm going to end up playing. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at both of the deck lists that I was considering. This is Andre's deck list from sort of a medium-sized list in Brazil. You'll notice there's 58 cards here. The Molochs are the things that are missing here. We have a reasonable balance of cards. And the reason I didn't just fire off this deck list and I went searching for other deck lists was this is a 22 land deck list that is playing 3 Wastelands in a deck that has just a ton of double colored pips. Like there's tons of black, 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 green, 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 red, and Wasteland honestly just kind of spooked me in this deck. So I was just about ready to record with this, and then I just looked at the mana base and went, nope, this one isn't for me. So then I found Reid Duke's deck list, which was a lot closer to what I thought I wanted to be playing. This still had the Wastelands, but I had 25 hands, meaning I would more consistently be able to use Wasteland as a real spell, and I would more consistently be able to cast my spells, as there were ultimately fewer things with double-colored pips. But we can do a little bit better than just this in terms of like really trying to figure out what's going on with these deck lists, and I'm going to show off a feature from my sponsor, Moxfield.com now. So what you're looking at here is the compare feature on Moxfield.com. Essentially, you plug in a link to 2 deck lists, and it will tell you exactly what cards are unique to each one of the deck lists, and which cards are shared. And this really quickly let me see the difference between these things. So Andre's deck, for example, is running Doughty Voidwalkers and Abrupt Decays as early game cards, whereas Reid's deck has kind of Tarmogoyf and Assassin's Trophy in the same slots. And this gave me a very fast, very clean way to go and compare these deck lists. And it works for the sideboard cards as well, so we can see the things they agreed on, but there was massive disagreement in what the sideboard was supposed to look like. Despite the fact that these were both Jund decks operating under the same core, they actually had a ton of differences. So I kind of compiled these two deck lists and I made some changes, and here's what I actually ended up with. So here's the 75 that I'm going to be playing, and I used Reid Duke's list as my base as I liked his higher land count quite a bit. I made a few changes. I decided that I wanted a second Grist more than I wanted a second Liliana. Again, I've just been so impressed by just turn 1 Mana Dork, turn 2 Grist, and this list even has Dryad Arbor to make that happen more consistently. But I really liked some of Andre's tech. In particular, I thought Seeds of Innocence was really good. 8-cast style decks are absolutely all over Magic Online, and I wanted something that hit faster than Pernicious Deed. While Pernicious Deed for X's 0 operates at the same speed as Seeds of Innocence, it is going to miss things like Kappa Cannoneer and Thought Monitor, and I didn't think that was super acceptable. Pernicious Deed has wider utility, but I wasn't sure that the added utility of being able to wipe other things was worth losing out on the raw speed of this card. Like, a Seeds of Innocence coming down on turn 2 or turn 3 versus 8-cast is not necessarily game over, but it's pretty tough to beat, especially if you do have other things like Collector Oof and Culligan's Command in the deck list that can continue to blow up or stop additional artifacts beyond that. So yeah, if you like what you see here on screen and you end up wanting to buy some of these things, please consider my other sponsor, Cool Stuff Inc. Promo code ThrabenU will save you 5% on your order. And I think with that being said, let's hop into some leagues and see how Jund feels in 2023. Let's battle. Well, I've kept a pretty reasonable opening hand here, assuming that Ignoble Hierarch gets to happen. It looks like I'm probably playing against a mono black helm deck list of some kind. Am I just getting fucking turn 1? Oh, fuck. Oh, no. 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 Not like this. So my opponent gets back Dark Ritual and plays Opposition Agent. Wow. I'm gonna ask for this deck list. Wow. Okay. I'm not going to concede yet. Like, my opponent doesn't have a very... Oh, man, my fetch lands are fucking dead, though. Oh, man. Everything's awful. Wow. You wake up in the morning. Tarmogoyf's gonna be small, too, because of the ley line. Fuck. You wake up in the morning. You're ready to record videos for the people. You play Jund to make the people happy. And that mono black player... And this isn't online right now because of Opposition Agent, and that evil mono black player just here to take all of my cards on turn 1 and prevent me from playing Magic. Who would do that? Who would do that, honestly? It's too powerful. It can't be stopped. This is cool. I'm so happy for my opponent. I will concede. I just got so good. So, Collector Oof can stop some nonsense. Sheoldred's Edict is pretty good. It can make my opponent sacrifice early creatures or Karn. I could play my own ley lines for ill-gotten gains, but I don't know that I want to do that. What do I feel about Deed? Deed can mop up a lot of stuff. I might play Endurance just to hedge against what just happened there. Ugh. Alright, cool. My opponent has agreed to share the deck list with me. I have no idea how to board here. Ramunap seems slow. It seems like my opponent goes Hellbent for Lily. It's still a removal spell. I legit don't know, folks. This... I just got so good. Just so incredibly savagely. This does not have access to a green mana. This is super reasonable. I will absolutely keep this. And I think I just throw back one mana dork here. Could happen again. I'm so scared. I think I'm going to go with a Bayou, and I'm going to Green Sun immediately for Dryad Arbor, which may look a little weird since I have a mana dork already. But I want to use my Green Sun before Opposition Agent would shut it off. And it's my intention to wasteland my opponent's land drop if possible here, rather than just jam Liliana on turn 2. Nice. Thoughtseize. Alright, I've lost the Liliana. Ooh, my opponent has another play. Opposition Agent is a thing that can occur. I'm gonna go ahead and take out a land. And then the question is, how many Ignoble Hierarchs do I play this turn? I think I just do both. And prepare to be able to top deck, you know, a Green Sun or Minsc Boo or Undermountain Adventurer or something. But if that doesn't happen, we'll be fine just getting frisky with Dryad Arbor. Wasteland does put some strain on the mana base here, but is pretty strong. Yes. That 2 life is super relevant when my opponent doesn't have any creatures on board and are relatively light on mana. Okay. Things can start. Oh, no. My goblins. That is a really hard swing in my opponent's direction here. I am going to fetch while Opposition Agent is not operational. We'll get a Taiga so that I can't get wastelanded off of any one color. And then we'll take out that Ancient Tomb. We're trying to deny my opponent's mana so that they can't get a Helm or another creature or whatever in play. I only need 8 more points of damage, which is not that much. I don't really want to be top decking discard at this stage of the game, and Inquisition in particular is going to miss Helm. Holy moly. I can't take my opponent off a removal spell if they draw mana. I am going to take my opponent off of Opposition Agent so that my Green Suns are still going to be live later on. Opponent has 3 things in hand that murder this Dryad Arbor. Not great for the home team here. Swamp, not what I'm looking for. Every turn this game goes on, I think my opponent gets more favored because all they need to do is hit mana. I'll fetch this in my opponent's upkeep. Again, we are going to very much respect the existence of Opposition Agent. So I'll grab a Bayou. Alright, Sudden Edict is now on the table. Yeah, so my opponent can go ahead and attack. I'll go to 15. Here's a Tarmogoyf. Well, I guess I'll attack with the Dryad Arbor and see if they're going to fire off a Sudden Edict immediately, or if they're going to try to wait for Plague Engineer to come down. Alright, they will just fire that off immediately. I am fine trading Tarmogoyf for the other Sudden Edict now. I don't have that many pieces of discard in my deck. Like, it's 4. So I will lose Tarmogoyf to Plague Engineer here. Ooh. Another Leyline under there. That's fine. I'll take some chip damage here. Plague Engineer is now live as a card. It never fails. It never fails. I will Thoughtseize my opponent. I will take the Plague Engineer. Their Thoughtseize is relatively dead, but they're ahead on board. And every land drop puts them closer to potentially killing me with Helm combo. Yeah, Helm is live to be played. Ho 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 ho. That's a draw. I am not going to crack this turn. I'm going to wait 1 turn cycle so that I can clear the entire board. It's worth taking 2 damage. And since I know my opponent has Thoughtseize in hand, they cannot possibly have Helm plus a land to kill me in a single go. This is insane. It can wait a turn. So in my opponent's upkeep. You know what? We'll go big. We'll do this for 5. How about that? And that takes out my opponent's board, leaving them with 2 lands. Undermountain Adventurer is really strong here. He did end up casting the Thoughtseize, unfortunately. I will continue to crack these around Opposition Agent, and we'll call it a turn. I'm not sure who's favored at this stage. I think it's me. I think I am just physically going to have more creatures that deal damage in my deck, and I'm probably going to have a higher density of removal. My opponent's playlines and stuff look a lot less good right now. This is probably a thick Tarmogoyf. Yeah. I think my opponent's going to have a removal spell. They just have not cast things when they have 2 cards in hand. Yep. A Helm is fine. Like, without a leyline effect, that is not threatening, but I can potentially die on my opponent's turn. So my opponent has Ill-Gotten Gains in their deck. But I have Tarmogoyf in my deck. I am not going to exile any... Maybe I do exile graveyards because they can mill me. Yeah, maybe I do still dunk their graveyard because they can mill me and hit a Tarmogoyf, and I would like their Tarmogoyf to be small. Yes. Do I do this pre-combat? Because I could attack with Endurance and then throw Endurance at my opponent, but I think I'm supposed to do this pre-combat still because the math can get a little wonky. All right, let's see what happens. X is 6. Oh! They found a Grist. Is not quite what they want. That's actually convenient for me. All right, GG's. Yeah, that leads to a win either with Minsc Boo plus or Minsc Boo minus there. So the discard spells didn't feel great. As the game went on, they still feel reasonable in the early game, but maybe I'm not supposed to do them on the draw. I want this source of card advantage after seeing how that match played out. Still think I need Lightning Bolts for Opposition Agents and Douthie Voidwalkers. Not sure from there. I think I'm going to cut an Inquisition of Kozilek for the Bob. And call that good? I don't know. Him might be better than the individual targeted discard. This is a matchup where I do wish I had the second Pernicious Deed that Reid Duke was playing. This hand is very bad versus an early Opposition Agent. Like, it does not have green mana and does not get to 4 mana. Well, I guess it has green mana with Dryad Arbor. That's just risky. Green Sun is significantly worse without the Dryad Arbor in the deck. This hand's also, honestly, pretty soft to just a discard spell taking Minsc Boo. I think the combination of those things is going to make me mulligan. Not a fan of this one either. This one has strong cards if my opponent doesn't Opposition Agent me. I'm fully dead to Opposition Agent, though. I think I am going to accept that and keep this rather than going to 5. This hand is at least good versus discard. Hopefully. Okay. How bad is it going to be? Okay, everything is fine. At least in theory. Dark Ritual Opposition Agent can still get me, but I don't think I am in the situation to play around that. Cool. This 100% gets Bayou, and like before, I think instead of accelerating into the black card, I just use Dryad Arbor before an Opposition Agent can come down. Alright, second land drop. Am I going to eat an Edict? Ooh, a Crumb Box is happening instead. There's a Douthie Voidwalker. I have 3 mana to work with this turn. I'm not actually the best at using 3 mana. I hope this Inquisition is not about to miss a Helm. I will be very sad if that is the case. Fuck! Okay. Right, there's an Ignoble Hierarch. My opponent does not have the mana to play and activate Helm. So I am hoping they just play it out so that I can Assassin's Trophy it. If they don't, I will Hymn to Tourach it. So I think I'm fine because I dodged Soul Land as their draw. Alright, let's see if my opponent is going for a Douthie Voidwalker attack. They are not. I think my line is pretty clearly just take the Helm out of their hand. And that lets me survive the turn. This has Shadow, so it can't block. My opponent has no cards. None of this stuff is an instant. Means I can just crack in with the Dryad Arbor for some damage. I'm not sure why my opponent held Dauthi Voidwalker back. Thoughtseize is fine. They can hymn me with Dauthi Voidwalker if they want to take my other 2 cards, which they probably should. Oh, not going for the hymn. I'm going to go ahead and edict my opponent, take out the Dauthi Voidwalker. I think it's okay. Go ahead and play this here and crash in for 3. I don't think I have to leave up Assassin's Trophy this turn because there's no draw that just leaves me dead. My opponent could top deck a discard spell and then take this, and I won't have taken out Leyline. And there's a risk associated with that timeline that could potentially occur. But that was one that I was willing to take, as I had already seen 1 Thoughtseize. And I do have to get my opponent dead at the end of the day. Toxic Deluge is rough. I've been taken off of red mana by that play. Okay, new Dauthi Voidwalker. I'm going to go ahead and fetch red mana now. Iga. Oh, excuse me. I forgot about the Leyline. These don't have void counters on it. That's why my opponent did not Dauthi Voidwalker him. My bad. They did not misplay. Too much brain power going to other things here. 7 people have already left comments telling me that I was wrong. Alright, let's take 3 more damage off Dauthi. Definitely scared. Like, my opponent just has a couple of cards here. Undermount Adventurer is in exile. I would do this for X's 3 for Grist, probably. This is an absolutely savage opposition agent, if it happens, which it does not. Now, I do also have the option of just grabbing Collector Oof here. That shuts off Chrome Mox and shuts off Helm. Is that better than Grist? I'm honestly not sure. I'm going to go with yes. It's like noticeably worse versus a single target removal spell, but it will keep me in the game versus some of the worst case scenarios. I will lose Ignoble Hierarch here. I need a little something off the top here. Thank you, Verdant Catacombs. Very cool. Yeah, so the issue is that Sudden Edict taking me off of Ignoble Hierarch gives my opponent the clock by half a turn cycle here. Alright, so there's Dark Ritual. Oh no! Into Shouldered. So this brings me to 3 life. And I get 1 draw. Shouldered brings me to 2. Then my opponent gets to crack in at me for a lethal. I have fallen just short here. If I'd gone with the Grist, I could have minused on the Dauthi Voidwalker, saved a little bit of life, but this Shouldered still would have been pretty tough to beat. I will unfortunately concede here. That was a great first game of this league. GG's. Alrighty. I have kept my opening hand here, which is going to do traditionally Jund stuff for sure. Looks like I am facing down a Death Shadow deck list. I'm going to go ahead and wasteland them in their upkeep to better play around a Stifle effect. Or, while they have mana tapped, is totally fine. Actually, I'll let them resolve their Brainstorm first. And then, goodbye Watery Grave. Alright, new land time for them. Probably need another Watery Grave. Gotta work towards Death Shadow. Cantrips are fine. And a very fast shuffle. Since I have so many lands, I'm going to go ahead and... I was going to say fetch non-basics because I don't care about being wastelanded, but... No, I did. I was probably supposed to play one of the Bloodstained Mires and get swamped this turn, and then Forest next turn. I don't think that is going to matter all that much in the grand scheme of things, but I think I played that wrong. Wow, that Thoughtseize got a 2-for-1. I'm going to go ahead and pass the turn here. I could, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Heart of the Cards, cast Endurance, exile their graveyard to play around Murktide Regent, as, like, that's something that my opponent could have wanted to Force of Will to protect. Alright, Endurance is down the drain. Seems to me like my opponent probably has a Death Shadow here. Oh, just more hand disruption. Yeah, my opponent must have some big creature that they are protecting here. Let's maybe pick up a Taiga. I am going to Green Sun for 1. This will make my Green Sun dazable, but I think Ignoble Hierarch is very noticeably better than Dryad Arbor here. The Exalted on a Vigilant creature definitely matters. Okay, it was a Murktide Regent that my opponent was protecting. Now I get to play the game of, would I like to Sylvan Library or Undermountain Adventurer? I honestly think I just Undermountain Adventurer. Bad against Daze, but is a hell of a clock when my opponent is at 9 life. Show me your Daze. There's the Daze. I was willing to play into Daze because I gave a pretty respectable Daze opportunity with the Green Sun for X's 1 a turn cycle or so ago. Alright, land drop. Oh, a Hymn to Tourach. That is quite strong here. I don't have a lot of time to answer this Murktide Regent. Lightning Bolt is not a thing that answers Murktide Regent. We'll get one more draw step here. I'm not going to fire off the Lightning Bolt immediately, as my opponent could use a discard spell or something on me. Strix is fine. I think so that my edicts are live. I just Lightning Bolt that body immediately. Oh, if they have a follow-up play. Okay, so now a single removal spell is not good enough anymore. Wooded Foothills will not do it there. GG's. So I have a Sheoldred's Edict, some Pyroblasts, I can think about Carpet of Flowers, I can think about Choke. Playlines aren't crazy, but I don't think I'm interested in them. And Pernicious Deed and Endurance fall into that pile of things that I can play that maybe aren't the best. I don't like this split of Inquisition and Thoughtseize. Inquisition was missing stuff like Helm last round, and in this round it's going to miss things like Force of Will and Murktide Regent. I don't know that I'm super interested in Ramunap. Don't know that I want to spend my mana on discard when I have stuff like this available to me. 4 removal spells are the first thing that comes in. From here I have a lot of options, and I'm not sure what's correct. Like, the Minsc Boos are really bad versus Daze, but they're an insane clock when my opponent wants to be at a low life total in the first place. Do I just ignore their hand? Just, like, ignore discard and fully play to the board? Doing this? All removal spells and dudes? I think I can be down with this. Lightning Bolt isn't necessarily the best removal spell, but my opponent still has, like, Grief, Reanimate, Grief lines that I need to respect. Yeah, this is fine. So, do I get a forest on turn 1? I don't think so. Because, like, for the Bayou to be punished, my opponent needs both a removal spell for this and, like, a Wasteland in the same turn cycle. And that seems pretty unlikely. Alright, there is a Snuff Out. That's fine. Ooh. Do I even Wasteland if I've just drawn Choke? I think I don't. I'm not 100% sure on that. See what my opponent does this turn. Yeah, Strix is totally fine. Opponent has 5 cards to have Force of Will or Force of Negation. So I think I'm going to go ahead and attempt to slam the Choke here. It is in play. Nice. Yeah, Wasteland's no big deal here. Don't mind that. And Baleful Strix starts getting in there. Snuff Out's fine. Like, mana is not my bottleneck over here. I think I just play around Daze. Just make it very awkward for my opponent if they would like to return something in your hand. Alright, it seems like they don't have counterspells. I want this to be a Dryad Arbor. I think the answer is no. Wow, another Snuff Out. I can take this damage just fine. That's all okay. I really want to jam this for Axis 3 and get a Grist that plays into Daze in a way that's awkward. But I think I'm going to do it anyway. Alright, it's happening. Grist. Grist plus. Riot Arbor is no longer in my deck. Note to future fill. This is fine. Like, I have an onboard way to just go and beat a Death Shadow. Let's ship in with an insect token. Oh, my opponent is willing to trade. Oh? Sure. Go ahead and plus here. I don't know how many basic land cards they have. I'm not going to try to blow that up. Rainstorm. Oh, that can resolve. This doesn't untap. Okay, my opponent is done with me. I was going to clear out their graveyard. Just put another body on board. I think I'm happy with how I have boarded. I am fine keeping this hand. I would really like to draw another land in my first 2 turns. And, like, I'll probably start on a basic land here, as being wastelanded off of my only true land is a bit of a problem. I've got kind of some interesting decisions this turn in terms of what I want to play around. So like this or this walks into Snuff Out, but this is like a card I very much do not want to get dazed. So I think I wait a turn to play this one. And I'm going to lead on the old Dryad Arbor. My opponent was F6'd there, so I don't think they have a daze in their hand right now, which is really good to know. Let's see what happens in this turn cycle. This is a Strix. That's fine. Let's attempt to resolve Carpet of Flowers. Nice. At this point, I'm just going to go to my second main phase here. And take my bonus mana. I think this is going to be black, and I just play Bob. I'll go ahead and play a Bob. And then an Ignoble Hierarch. Despite the fact that I have 1 land here, I have a pretty massive mana advantage. And it doesn't seem like my opponent has counterspells. Yeah, okay. That helps them a bit, but I still have 4 mana on my turn. Brainstorm's not that big of a deal here. This feels like suboptimal sequencing. I feel like you do the Brainstorm prior to the Wasteland so that you can potentially fetch things away or like otherwise sculpt out your turn. Yeah, that's fine. All right, Bob. Okay, they've seen my Pyroblast. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. This can just be Minsc Boo with a Pyroblast backup / playing it around days. I think I'd rather just get Grist going, though, honestly. Let's go ahead and add some black mana. Go ahead and play Grist. Nice. Grist resolves. At this point, we'll go ahead and Lightning Bolt the Strix out of the way. I'll plus a Grist. I'll swing in with Bob. We have Pyroblast backup for a Minsc, or not a Minsc Boo, maybe a Murktide Regent. Although, honestly, I'd wait to play it until my turn. My opponent really needed counterspells to deal with my hand, and they did not have them this game. Death Shadow is fine if my opponent does that. Like, I've got that covered. Ooh, that's very good. There's a 4/4 Death Shadow. I can eat that with a Pernicious Deed if I have to, but I would prefer not to. I have 7 mana this turn. I think my plan is just chump block the Death Shadow for a little while here. Alright, let's make some mana. Go ahead and play Undermountain Adventurer. Taking the initiative gives me another non-wasteland land drop here. Then I think I just drop the deed for the future. I think I can drop Pyroblast. Okay, that's fine. So I just chump block with an insect token in this turn cycle. And then some amount of like Undermountain Adventurer plus Minsc Boo kills my opponent next turn most of the time. Ooh, that does take me off of double red. Second Death Shadow. First one is not attacking. Put the initiative trigger on bottom to see what I draw with Bob first. Okay, I have double red again. I think I am fine forging and creating the largest creature on the board. Ooh, it's Grist. Grist is great here. Play Grist. We will Grist minus, dunk an insect token to destroy one of the copies of Death Shadow. This is attacking for 6. I can't also Minsc Boo in this turn cycle. Means that I will wasteland my opponent instead. Well, actually, I can do a post-combat Minsc Boo. This set does have vigilance. Let's just attack with this one so that I get the exalted trigger. Okay, opponent is chump blocking. I think wasteland and Minsc Boo both lead to wins. Gonna just take out that watery grave and call that good. Like, I can Minsc Boo, immediately minus, throw Undermountain Adventure at their face, put them to 3, and then trap kills them, or I can just, like, get rid of their resources, have Pyroblast for whatever they play, have more than lethal with attacks and Minsc Boo. Alrighty, this is round 3. I think I'm 1-1. I believe I'm comfortable leading on a basic forest here. And I think I'm gonna not get a Dryad Arbor with this since I have 2 other Mana Dorks in my hand. This is likely to become like an Undermountain Adventure or something like this as this game goes long. Tropical Island into Ponder has me immediately thinking of a Bant control list, maybe a green-blue show and tell list, Alurin. We've got options. Am I respecting days right now? Let's respect days and really just get the mana acceleration going. It'll make multi-spelling easier for the rest of this game. Ooh, we are on the combo spectrum. All right, had the call correct with show and tell. Grist, I think Grist comes in. There's an Omniscience and an Emrakul. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is all of my permanents, and I am comfortable conceding there. Rough. We had a pretty strong start, but not that strong. So we have Pyroblast to help with this. I'll probably play a Carpet of Flowers. Edicts are fine. Choke is mid, potentially playable. Not really a Culligan's Command matchup. Ramunap is probably not at its best. I want disruptive stuff and things that kill quickly. If I play these 6, I need 4 more cuts. Lightning Bolts are reasonable. The Suvan Drifter is an X4, so Lightning Bolt misses that. This is probably about where I'm at. I don't feel good about this matchup. I don't really have enough disruption, I think, to really pull super ahead in this matchup for a prolonged period of time. I don't mind this hand. Like, I do get to try to punch a hole in my opponent's plan and then use Bob and Carpet of Flowers to take advantage of that hole. What hole? Okay. It feels like I take the Ponder and pray. Oh man, I am not happy about this. Alright, we have taken my opponent's manipulation, but their deck is probably full of cantrips. But if I leave them with the Ponder, I think it's just too likely that they turn to show and tell me next turn. Alright, Trop means Carpet of Flowers is on. Also means Wasteland is on as a draw. Sure, that's fine. So let's attempt Carpet of Flowers, see if my opponent will let me resolve that. They do. Second main, I'm going to go ahead and add some black mana here. I'll just fetch another Bayou. And we're going to attempt Dark Confidant here, which feels good enough to Force of Will. My opponent agrees. So now, 1 show and tell is out of hand. We'll see what we can do. Okay. Got some Carpet of Flowers mana. This is honestly pretty unimpressive. If I fetch Dryad Arbor, I just have 3 points worth of damage next turn. That's not a fast enough clock. And I will be fetching the Dryad Arbor. I really don't want to draw that card. Here we go. Wasteland's not really what I want. We'll take it. Okay, sure. Something they're gonna play now? Oh. The Illusion of Choice. How grand? I'll swing in with a Dryad Arbor. But this feels like a just dreadful matchup here. My opponent presumably has land, show and tell. Yep. So I'll make the extra land drop here. And, yeah, my opponent gets to back this Atraxa up with a Force of Will. Take Force of Will and Ponder. Force of Will, Ponder, City, Sneak Attack. And I drew a land. Not great for the home team here. I imagine I'm just dead to this Atraxa. Like, I've got top decks that beat it, but I don't think I have top decks that beat it backed by Force of Will. Okay. Okay. With missing another draw there, I think this is the tipping point where I can't come back. GG's. Okay, I think I'm fine keeping this hand. I would like to draw another persistent land, but like we have 4 total mana producing things and 2 lightning bolts as early interaction. I think I'm fine with this. Well, I can start thinking about whether or not I want basics from turn 1 here, but I think the answer is no. I'm gonna have a lot of different colored pips. I lead on a Taiga here, actually. Actually, if I lead on Taiga, I can't Hymn on turn 2 if I draw that. The Bayou is fine. And Flooded Strand is often indicative of a control deck, so I'm not going to fire off Green Sun for Dryad Arbor here. I'm going to see if we can turn this into a real threat later on in the game. Alright, what are we doing? Ooh, we are Delver instead. Sure. That's slightly scary, but ultimately probably fine. This one is now a Taiga. Do I Green Sun first? I'll play Mana Dork first. Mana Dork into Bolt. I might just develop my mana this turn and deal with the Delver next turn. Let's do that. I'm willing to take a hit for 3. Also, like, not a guaranteed hit for 3. Okay, now it's pretty much guaranteed hit for 3. That's fine. Delver flips off Force. That's fine. I can bait a Force with a Lightning Bolt. Bobble? That's fine. The Wasteland is much less fine. I really want this mana. Oh, I'm glad that got taken out instead of the Taiga. 3 points of damage is fine by me. Take your extra card. Let's start here, see if this resolves. The only good thing that I have to do with my mana from here is Hymn to Tourach. So I'm going to cast it despite the fact that, like, this is dazable, or this could just trade with Force of Will. This gets dazed, my opponent can't just immediately Murktide Regent me. And if it gets Force of Willed, like, I still took 2 cards from my opponent's hand, and I'm still ultimately happy with that. If Murktide Regent comes down, I have Assassin's Trophy. And it does not. I think this is an Endurance in my opponent's turn. We're going to attempt to do this in upkeep here. I don't necessarily expect it will resolve. I'm not really in a position to play around days because I do just want to jam another 3-drop in the not too distant future. And Grist seems like the more important one that I do want to resolve. Sure. I mean, if you got another days, you got another days, but we're jamming. It is another days. If I wait, I'm just in danger of my mana sources getting wastelanded and lightning bolted, and then I'm just taken off of those cards. Okay, sure. Tarmogoyf is a little annoying because I really wanted to just Assassin's Trophy the Murktide Regent if one were to come down. I think I'm going to take this opportunity to just match my opponent here and get my own Tarmogoyf, and then try to use my lightning bolts to win a Tarmogoyf war. Yeah, this is fine. This is a land drop in this matchup. I think I'm fine clearing the board. A Lightning Bolt Dragon Rage Channeler. I will Assassin's Trophy Tarmogoyf. Opponent does have a basic. And then my Tarmogoyf gets to attack for 8 because of Exalted. I guess I did this turn in a way that doesn't leave up Lightning Bolt. That is suboptimal. Yep, this is fine. My opponent is dead because I have an attack for 7, paired with a Lightning Bolt for lethal, and that'll just do it here. They're playing against Rug Delver. Something I have to keep in mind is the top end of this deck may include Minsc and Boo. So things that I can consider: Choke, Endurance, Deed, Edict, Pyroblasts, Carpets, Leyline. I have 12 cards that I can consider. I don't think I want my discard spells in this matchup. I think I want to be attacking the board. Like, I want to be answering my opponent's creatures rather than preemptively taking them. Most of the rest of the cards that are here are fine. I probably don't get to pay life with Sylvan Library in this matchup, I think, meaning that I'm willing to take that out. That is 8 cards, so if I don't want to play Leyline, this is what I am rocking. Leyline's a little awkward since Tarmogoyf is a thing in my deck. I haven't seen Murktide Regent, but it's presumably there. Dragon Rage Channeler is there. I think with 3 copies... No, it's only 2 copies of Endurance. I still think this is enough. I think I'm comfortable submitting like this and not playing Leyline in the matchup. This is not a great on-the-draw hand. Like, this is Choke without the ability to answer a turn 1 or turn 2 threat that my opponent plays out. I have a Dryad Arbor for mana acceleration that will get dazed or lightning bolted. Do I still just keep this anyway, though? Because my deck is just, like, any non-land draw is just a good draw. And I can lead on 2 basics a lot of the time. Yeah, I think I'm still okay with this. It's a little sketch. My opponent's already on 6. I think I'm okay. What do you got? We cantripping, or are we playing a creature out early? We are cantripping, which is great and kind of fits in with my desired pace of this game. Okay, and they are gonna take a look at my top card, presumably here, which is fine. I said any non-land draw is good. Any non-land draw. Despite the fact that I am flooded, I am still good with doing this early. Like, I would like my opponent to expend resources on this, be it a counterspell or a lightning bolt or whatever, so that my stuff later on is more likely to resolve / survive. Alright, they're doing the bobble at my end step, so they'll get to see my next card. Alright. Wasteland sets me back. Like, we played out Forest to slightly play around Wasteland. Minsc Boo is solid. Gonna make my land drop and pass. I really wanted a playable card in my first 2 draw steps. Sort of an unfortunate situation, because if I don't draw a playable in the next turn, I have to just play a turn 3 choke, which is, like, not where I want to be. That's fine. Like, choke on this board is not good, right? I don't think that really counts as a playable here. I think I'm just gonna play a choke and assume that it gets countered. Oh, cool. Note, this is still not a good situation for me. Like, I am not favored on the current board. My opponent, like, very clearly is. Oh, cool. Dragon Rage Channeler is not attacking for 3 this turn. That helps a bit. My opponent still may have a counter spell, and they just didn't use it last turn. But I don't think I can take the turn off here. I think I just need to be able to interact with these creatures. Oh. Gonna get lightning bolted here? I'm gonna get lightning bolted here. So this is a good trick if you're not familiar with this one. So in response to a Minsc Boo trigger, you just lightning bolt the Minsc Boo before the Planeswalker has the ability to activate. So I will get a 1/1 blocker that can buy me 6 life and a little bit of time. But I'm kind of fully at the mercy of my draws here. And unfortunately, most of my draws this game have been mana. That is an exceptional draw. My opponent has 2 cards. I believe I'm interested in just casting this at sorcery speed and playing out my mana dorks. Oh no. This is potentially my opponent brainstorming to try and find an answer to this. They get to look 4 cards deep, but it has to be Force of Will and blue card. Alright, Endurance is in play. I'll clear my opponent's graveyard. That greatly reduces the power of Tarmogoyf. And then I'm fine playing out these mana dorks. The second one is dazable. I don't care about that. So Creature Land Planeswalker are in there as of right now. I can attack my opponent for 5. and I can take 4 on the crackback. I think I am interested in just becoming a turtle, though, and waiting until the attacks are more favorable for me. Like, my opponent doesn't get to just, like, cantrip willy-nilly. And Dragon Rage Channeler is not anywhere near becoming more threatening. Yes. Guess I can play this to play around multiple days as well. I will Minsc Boo. Yes. Plus on Boo. Go to combat. I am fine with attacking with that as a 6/6. And I kind of expect that that ends things in short order. Heyo, and we win the match. Yeah, that choke situation was definitely scary. Like, my opponent was ahead on board, but our deck managed to get there. All right, I have a nice Jundy opening hand here that I'm pretty happy with. The island's not a snow cover island. We can rule out Icefang Coatl with the start here. I think I'm okay with just Badlands into Thoughtseize as my starting play here. Force of Will, Spell Pierce. I'll be taking the Spell Pierce. My opponent shuffled off of that Ponder, so their opening hand is, relatively speaking, pretty weak. Feels like we might be playing against something kind of in that show and tell spectrum here. I'm going to grab a Bayou. I'm playing one of these 2 cards. Either one of them probably gets Force of Willed. I think I just him now and force the issue. Oh, we got a Force of Will and a Force of Negation, leaving my opponent with a Force of Will. And no land drop for their turn. Grab another Bayou. I'm going to see if Dark Confidant resolves or if my opponent will Force of Will that. Okay, cool. Then I'll go ahead and play an Ignoble Hierarch. We're looking to find probably more discard with Dark Confidant. Oh, Tundra was not a land that I was expecting. This has a lot of early interaction with like Spell Pierce and Force of Negation. This is going to be like a Cephalid Breakfast. Sure, that's fine. It's a little annoying that it's exile because I can't just get it back with Culligan's command. Oh, that's a good draw. We'll probably round things out with a Taiga here. And start this little sub game. I know it resolves. I know what my opponent's last card is. And that's good enough for my opponent. I am legit not sure what they're playing. Like, is this going to be a Stoneblade deck? Is that what I'm facing down? I want Pyroblasts. I want Carpet. I'm probably going to play Shouldered's Edict. And Choke. Him is not great versus Spell Pierce. But I'm like not super confident in what my opponent is playing. Like, they literally only showed me interaction. That much interaction, like, could be control or could be combo, and I'm just very uncertain of how I want to approach this. Like, I'm confident of the cards that I want, but what I take out is much harder for me. So if my opponent is Stoneblade, for example, then the discard is important to punch a hole in the Stoneforge Mystic plan. I guess Inquisition is not ideal there. I'm going to sub 1 Carpet of Flowers or 1 Ignoble Hierarch. Ramunap Excavator is probably not essential. Lightning Bolts are incredibly variable. Like, if Stoneforge is there, it's important. I'm going to cut 2 Inquisition of Kozilek. I'm going to cut Endurance. And trim a Lightning Bolt. But again, I'm unsure of exactly what I need here. This is a fine opening hand. Bobble? Am I playing against Delver and I just saw the counterspelliest of counterspell hands ever made? Okay. Let's, I guess, lead on this. Find the Dryad Arbor, see if I feed that to a Swords to Plowshares. Okay, so they looked at their own stuff. Unfetched. There's actually a Brainstorm just for mana efficiency here. Oh, okay. Control is the answer rather than combo. So I would say I'm not sideboarded too badly given that. My Ignoble Hierarchs are not going to be amazing versus Terminus.deck. And the Terminus was set up by Brainstorm, by the way. That's why my opponent did that so aggressively. So we're going to go ahead and crash in with a 4/5 Tarmogoyf here. I would just like my opponent to tap a mana. Yeah, that's great. What that means for me is I can now do a Grist, and if my opponent has Force of Negation, they have to pay the cost of exiling an extra card. I'm thinking about whether or not I get a basic. I think the answer is just no. I think if my opponent plays back to basics, it just obliterates me given my hand. So I think I choose not to play around it and just get a Taiga for variety. This can still be Spell Pierced though, but if this gets Spell Pierced, maybe Minsc Boo resolves in another turn or two. Alright. It's in play. My opponent thought for a long time there. Oh man, I milled my Sylvan Library. Mystic Sanctuary. Putting a Terminus on top. This is a May, so they don't actually have to. My opponent gave that a good long think before going and doing it. Alright, they're going to bounce my token. This gives me Lightning Bolt for Jace the Mind Sculptor. Or as backup Assassin's Trophy for it. We're going to start with the Lightning Bolt. Okay, cool. That's fine. I know Terminus is my opponent's top card. That's fine. I will Grist plus anyway and hold up Assassin's Trophy. Alright, so my opponent does cast the Terminus. Mystic Sanctuary again. Okay. It is a new Jace the Mind Sculptor. Fate sealing me. I guess that's playing around Lightning Bolt. Guess I'll do this at my opponent's end step. We'll Assassin's Trophy the Jace. And that's good enough for my opponent to concede. What are you doing way up there in the corner? Well, we got a 3-1 finish. You don't get to see my wonderful little treasure chest, apparently. Yeah, so I'm not going to claim Jund is the best deck in the world or anything, but honestly, that league felt pretty solid. I was not a fan of how that show and tell matchup felt. It just feels like that is going to be a tough matchup with what I'm doing. Discard only goes so far. Like, discard plus Pyroblasts is a good start, but I think a lot of times my opponent will do well in the top deck war as that game goes on. Taking one last look at the deck list, I'm pretty happy with how this felt overall. The higher land count worked well with the Wastelands. I flooded out a few times, but in theory there's a decent amount of endgame here. Maybe I would try to squeeze one more, like Planeswalker, Dark Confidant, Sylvan Library, something like that into the 75 somewhere. And even though we didn't use Seeds of Innocence today, like, I'm still very happy that I had that card, and I felt like I had good sideboarding options in most of my rounds, even if I wasn't always sure exactly how I wanted to sideboard. Yeah, so I think that's all I've got today. Throw any thoughts you have down in the comments, and remember, if you end up wanting to buy any of these cards, check out Cool Stuff Inc. and promo code ThrabenU will save you 5% on your order. Hope you all have a great rest of the day. See ya!